This program is part of the Infinite Potato Alliance. Visit us at infinitepotato.com.
Barbara, we made it.
I can't believe it.
London, 1965.
Hey, we're 2 years out.
Oh, what's 2 years amongst friends? Well, hello. I'm just going to press that button. Run! Well, let's put paid to the Daleks time traveling for a while.
Give the doctor a breather anyway.
Yes. I wonder where he is right now.
Hey, Doctor, wherever you are.
Shh! Someone coming.
Goodbye, Doctor. Thanks for the ride.
It was fun, Doctor. Goodbye.
I'm Shane Thomas and this is Analysing Doctor Who. I'm joined by Jenn Allen and Rogue Karen, and we are here to analyse Rogue. And if you have any thoughts on our thoughts, or anything else Doctor Who based, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. So we'll start with the episode rating for this. Jen, what are you giving this out of 10?
9.
Karen, what are you giving this?
I'll give it an 8.
Okay, I'm giving it 7. So, Karen, what from this did you like the most?
It's the best episode so far of Gatwa's run as the Doctor. I really don't have any quibbles with it. I mean, I have minor quibbles, but nothing like previous episodes. And I know that's a generic and general thing to say about it, but to me, that was a really big thing. I didn't have any problems with this episode.
And Jenna, same question to you.
Well, you had warned me in advance, Shane, before we recorded that I would love this episode, and you were right. It basically touched every single nerd itch that I have, and I agree with Karen. It's probably the best episode of this particular series so far with 15th Doctor, and I just loved it so much. We'll go into detail, obviously. Overall, it just hits so many things that I go gaga over that I was very entertained.
Yeah, I think the moment that I liked the most from this is the moment in Rogue Ship where the Doctor reveals who they are and reveals a number of their faces.
Press send. I'm much older. Something much older and far more powerful. I'm a Lord of Time. From the lost and fallen planet of Gallifrey. Now let me go, bounty hunter. We have work to do.
Wow. Up to that point in the episode, not that I hadn't liked what I'd seen, but the episode and the Doctor had kind of been very frothy and quite silly, which is fine. There's always room for that in Doctor Who. But this was kind of the moment that the Doctor showed us what they're on. It was okay, I'm messing around, but yeah, just remember who the fuck I am. I always generally enjoy those in Doctor Who anyway. And beyond actually just being, I thought, a real good moment, it's actually very important to the episode. Russell spoke about this episode. It followed very rom-com themes of the two people meet, they don't like each other, and then they like each other. And this is the transition moment of kind of going from hate to love, because you get the scene with the Doctor saying who they are, you see all the faces, and Rogue's response is just to go, wow. It's not something that was clear to me in the moment, but when you watch it back, and I've rewatched it, it's clear that he's kind of smitten from that moment. And one extra piece of trivia that some people did latch onto is that when you saw kind of almost that carousel of Doctor's faces, most of them I'm sure you recognise. There were some people did not recognise. I think some people noticed a face of quite a famous actor who they didn't know was the Doctor, and that's Richard E. Grant, who played the character humorously in The Curse of Fatal Death, but also did a version of, it was kind of almost kind of audio book, not on screen version. It was like an animated thing that was done in the end, in an episode called Scream of the Shellcat, which is one of those things like Peter Cushing where it's like, well, it's the Doctor, but it's not really, let's pretend let's forget it ever happened. And the fact that Russell's put this in and then has on Instagram essentially confirmed that he's canonized this And it fits in the whole timeless child thing of other Doctors that we may not have been aware about. But that definitely set social media aflutter a little bit of, oh, so this counts, does he? He's put that version in, so that version, that's official. So if we move on, Jen, to what from this you like the least?
And Shooty's wig. I know it's a minor, teeny tiny little nitpick, but that wig he was wearing, I was not a fan. Most of the wigs and the costuming and the makeup in this were like top notch, but for some reason, him wearing that wig, I just thought it was weird. It didn't really fit. I know that he was wearing it, because, which is explained in the theme of the episode, cosplay, but I kept staring at it the whole time he was on screen. And I was just like, no. I mean, that's a teeny tiny little minor thing that I didn't like. I couldn't deal with it. That choice of hairpiece.
I usually kind of single that out because I didn't think it was terrible considering, but I think maybe I thought that because generally speaking not just with Doctor Who, but with TV and films, when for whatever reason a black actor might have to wear a wig, they're usually really, really bad. Like the way you said, I couldn't stop staring at it. That happens a lot. I see when black actors, for whatever reason of the story, have to wear a wig. It's a notorious thing that black actors have with hair and makeup. Sometimes they've got to do their own makeup.
Yeah, because a lot of hair people are white or other ethnicities, so they don't understand black hair. That was probably the case here.
Black hair and black skin. I know the costume designer is a white woman. I think generally throughout the series she's actually done very well with styling. Shooty, he does have the idea that he's something of a clothes horse. You can put anything on him and he can seemingly carry it off. I didn't think the wig was terrible, but maybe it's because I've just through watching too much TV, I've set the bar maybe a bit too low. And so, Karen, what from this you like the least?
I'm gonna be a curmudgeon. I don't like period pieces. I fucking hated Downton Abbey. Bridgerton, I don't know her. I could have done without the period piece part of this completely. That was why I gave it an 8 instead of anything higher, because my brain just shuts down when I see period piece clothing. I know that sounds somewhat disingenuous because one of my favorite of Whittaker's era is The Haunting of the Villa Diodati, but one of the things that helped take the pain out of that one is the fact that she was running around in her costume the whole time, her Doctor Who outfit the whole time, not really trying to blend in. While the companions show up and they're all decked out in the right clothes, and there she is in her short pants and her boots and her jacket. I guess that's a sort of an overarching minor quibble I have with Gatwa's Doctor is I kind of miss that costume template that they always seem to have for the Doctor, of where they kind of have their own uniform that they stick to no matter where they are, with exceptions. I mean, I just finished Capaldi's era, and I know he dressed up in period costume when he and Bill went back in time. But I miss the uniform that identifies the Doctor. Like the minute you see it, oh, that's 15. Oh, that's 13. Oh, that's 10. But I know they're flexing their bigger budget. I get that. But those are my two quibbles with this episode.
Yeah, I suppose, and that's something maybe we should return to in a future pod. I think my basic reasoning, I think, for that is it does actually broaden the ways people can cosplay him, but I think it's partly because of the actor. I almost think we can't just give this actor one costume because he looks good in almost anything. That's my suspicion. I don't have any inside info or anything.
The costume that they presented that was supposed to be his uniform, it looks so good on him. And then he has worn it. I do remember he has worn it on screen, but then you see him in another outfit. And I feel like maybe they're trying to stick with a template palette for him, maybe. They've put him in a lot of orange. They put him in a lot of browns. They all look great on him. He's a very attractive man, and he has a very attractive physique. I get it. You want to show that off. I don't know. It's a stupid quibble, but I just miss that. I miss seeing and going, oh, there's the Doctor. Yeah, he's not going to try to blend in at all.
I've noticed that too. It's like he's doing a color palette, but they're changing his outfits within that color palette for this particular Doctor, which I think is tying into some of the more queer aspects of the character that they're going with. But again, also this particular episode was talking about cosplay. It made sense for both him and Ruby to be dressed up. But yeah, he has changed outfits for other episodes, and I'm like, okay, I guess they're just going with whatever he wants to wear that week.
And again, he's very handsome. He's very attractive. And everything they've put him in has looked great on him. I'm just being sad and pouty now.
From what I like the least, again, it's not a massive thing. It's essentially the climax scene where they get rid of the children and Rogue sacrifices himself. It's not the moment or what happens. It's just how it's put together. So the idea of the Triforce, set it up. The Triform, you set it to 6. You get one go at this. You send him to Oblivion. And then Ruby's stuck in there, so the Doctor can't bear to send them because of Ruby. And in the moment, Rogue is saying you have to because the children will escape. They'll kill us. They'll kill like this country, then the world. And what I was stuck on at that point is, sorry, how are they escaping? Because they all look pretty locked in place in that triangle. Does this Triform lose its power after a while? If you keep struggling, do you get free? If that's so, that wasn't really explained to us. And also was not explained the way you can just swap like one person for another, like it's like NBA trade season or something. Or like you're swapping the Idol for the Rock and the start of Raiders of the Lost Ark. What were the rules? Because I didn't know you could do that. It initially actually starts with 5, and then it's the shoulder that where Ruby almost breaks her nose, and then Rogue grabs her and just dumps her in quite easily, even though they're meant to be really strong. Like, all of these things should have been a moment of high tension to rival like some of the bits of Boom, and it ended up more confusing. Because as it's happening, I'm like, so what, we can do that now? Oh, that's how that works. That's how that works. Those things needed to be kind of laid out in a more concise and clear way. So I'm not thinking, oh, is that allowed? Oh, can that work? Oh, is that how this is going to be resolved? And in the moment when Ruby's saying to the Doctor, it's fine. If you've got to sacrifice me for them, fine. And the Doctor, in a moment of turmoil, the camera could have been tighter on their faces and on Rogue's face. Because in that moment when no one's really talking, you have to let the actors communicate the thought processes that lead up to what happens without any words being spoken. And particularly like Shooty in particular has got such an expressive face that I set him up to succeed. So get that camera tight on his face. Get the camera tight on Millie Gibson's face. Get it tight on Jonathan Groff's face. So when the moment happens, it almost feels, well, that's always what it was going to happen because the actors have signalled their thought processes and therefore what they're going to do next. And I checked, and the director of this is Ben Chessel. He also directed The Devil's Cord. And that's another episode that I think struggled with its climactic scene with the music fight and Ruby tied up in the notes. And I thought the way it was directed and also cut made what should have been a gripping, almost action scene a lot less gripping than it should have been. Like, given everything that was at stake and everything that actually happens, this could have been the scene in a series so far. And it wasn't a bad scene. I have no problem with the order of events as they happen. It is just down to the execution. And it's a case of a scene that could have been 9 or 10 out of 10 being like 6 or 7. I liked it the least, not because I thought it was bad, but because it was felt short of what it could and maybe should have been. So we'll move on to, I think, the big subplot from this, and that's the Doctor and Rogue, the dynamic between them, the seeming relationship between them. We may briefly touch on the reaction to that. Karen, I'll come to you first on these two.
I thought that it was a lovely setup and a lovely execution. I mean, there's nothing new about the Doctor developing feelings for that week's guest star. I know that the new is it's 2 men. It was well done. It was funny. It was fun. It was, like you were saying, it was a rom-com. It was, hate to love and all stops in between. And again, Shooty is very dynamic and very easy to watch. Everything I've ever seen him in has been enjoyable. And so to watch him develop emotions and feelings for Rogue, or the Rogue, as he called him at one point, it all felt very naturalistic. It didn't feel, I know I saw a lot of people going, the kiss was rushed. And really, was it? Because I'm pretty sure David Tennant's character locked lips with every female guest star that came across his time as the Doctor.
Before never seeing him again.
Exactly. It was a fun romp. It was an enjoyable episode. I was kidding around with Emma earlier about the fucking bird costumes. Because to me, they were a little silly, but she said her daughter enjoyed them, so they get a pass for childlike amusement. Yeah, the episode was great. The relationship was great. I would like to see him come back. I think I would like to see the development of the new Captain Jack, as I've seen him referred to.
Well, yes. I mean, this is basically, as some people have said, the new and improved Captain Jack.
Yeah. And that's fine. You know, I never had a problem with Captain Jack either. And I thought, oh, my God, if they had the ability to do Captain Jack the way they could do Captain Jack now, oh, my God. I fear for what John Barrowman would have done with that character. But I enjoyed it. I thought Goff did a great job as Rogue. And I would definitely like to see him come back.
Jen, I can bring you in on the Doctor and Rogue.
I thought it was absolutely adorable, or should I say adorable, because you learn a lot about the Rogue in just a little time that you have him on screen. It was interesting, to see him and the Doctor flirting off each other, especially on Rogue's ship. I mean, that little dance that Ncuti does is hilarious. I love it. To the song of a gay icon, Kylie Minogue, who played a previous Doctor companion. There's a lot of meta stuff in this episode, by the way. There are little flirtations and the I hate you, I okay, you're okay, maybe I'm attracted to you, okay. It was all the back and forth, and the dance scene in particular, I was just, I thought it was so cute, the two of them dancing. That also touched an itch for me, because a lot of people are saying, obviously, well, it's somewhat stated that they're there because Ruby is a Bridgerton fan, but I was thinking Jane Austen, because I'm an old person. I was thinking Pride and Prejudice, specifically the dance scene in Pride and Prejudice.
Well, that's actually Millie Gibson, when she spoke about this, Pride and Prejudice, which was what she invoked personally.
Their whole dynamic, it worked. Both actors have really expressed, as already mentioned, they both have really expressive faces. In particular, I know Goff from a bunch of other stuff, like he was in the new Matrix movie. He was in an episode of Glee. I've seen him he's most famous for being the second King George in Hamilton, a theater background too. So that's probably why he's got such an expressive face. And just the two of them together, and just the subtle shifts of their expressions to show, like, well, okay, maybe you're not so bad, was fun to watch. It seemed short just because it was one episode from them to go from one dynamic to the other, but we've seen it so many times in Who and other shows, so I was okay with it. And yeah, it was kind of cookie cutter, except for the fact that it was two dudes. So what? This type of relationship is more celebrated, and I love it. And the fact that they also did this in Pride Month certainly helped. So I was totally fine with it. And yeah, I also, when I first saw Rogue on camera, I thought, oh no, is this a new Captain Jack? And he turned out to be almost nothing like Barrowman's character, which was a refreshing change. I mean, he had a little bit of that in there, like with his trinkets and his ship and all that, but otherwise, he's a completely new character that I absolutely adored, and he played off the Doctor so well that I'm looking forward to him coming back as well. I don't know if they're going to do it this season or in a future season, but I'm all for it. These two are so adorable, and I want it.
Yeah, this episode is basically why you hire Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. They're the writers of this episode. Anyone familiar with Herron's work in Sex Education, even the first season of Loki, she is very interested in ideas of romance and ideas of thirst and ideas of sex, and this is one of the most consciously thirsty episodes of Doctor Who I've ever watched, and consciously yearning. It's really invested in and interrogating the idea of what it means to, like, travel alone and wanting companionship in whatever form to try and make someone whole, because, I mean, even though the Captain Jack joke is an obvious one, this character so far is actually not like Captain Jack. Because Jonathan Groff, as anyone who's seen him act on TV or on stage, no, he can be very kind of bright and flamboyant, but he's actually very restrained in this. He's a little Ninth Doctor. He's not as astringent as a Ninth Doctor, but that wounded person because of personal trauma, because you've lost someone. He's almost going through the Kubler-Ross model still, and the Doctor is the one, kind of like what Rose was for the Ninth Doctor. This Doctor helps bring Rogue out of that malaise that he's in. So Jonathan Groff actually isn't flamboyant. He's quite taciturn. He doesn't speak a lot. When he speaks, he's very economical with his speech. And if you did look at it as a rom-com, Ncuti plays the more, I won't say woman role, but more femme part in this. He's accessed some different parts of his character when this Doctor crushed on someone. If you look at those early, up to the moment I mentioned earlier, when he reveals who he is, he's very giggly and almost slightly coquettish, and he's not calm, and he's not controlled, and he's not authoritative. I don't know if I've ever seen a Doctor like this. I don't mean that as a criticism, but this is different. I think I said in one of our, it might have been our preview pod, but it might have been when Ncuti got cast. Often when modern Doctors have been cast, we compare them to one of their predecessors. Smith is like Troughton, Tennant is like Davison, but I'm not sure Ncuti will be like anyone. He may take this whole character down a path which not everyone will like, but a path that we haven't seen it done before. This felt like a new path. I personally haven't seen the Doctor like this, and I just can't imagine any of the older versions being anything like this either.
I kind of felt like that was going to be the expectation, though, because I felt like when they showed how 15 came to be with the bi-generation, that was sort of the moment where I was like, oh, well, all bets are off. You're not going to be able to compare him to any of the other Doctors. He's not going to be like any of the Doctors because no other Doctor has come to be in this way. And, when they had him speaking with 14, and saying, you've been through so much, and it kind of felt like he was leaving his baggage with 14 and setting off where, even though he still had those memories and he's still working through some stuff, he's much more open about it. He's much more emotional about it. He's like even at the end of this episode where he tries to go back into that Doctor mode of, all right, well, this is done. Let's move on to the next place. And Ruby's like, no, that's not how we do things. Because she even recognizes that this Doctor is much more in tune with his emotions and how he deals with what they're going through. And I like how she pulled him out of that. You're not going back to the way those other Doctors were. You're different. Maybe I'm reading too much into the whole bi-generation, but I kind of just was like, well, he's definitely just not going to be like any other Doctor we've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. I like that Ruby was like, stop. You need a hug. So the fact that she stops him and is like, okay, you need a moment. Just hugs him so he has some time to, go through things. I thought that was also a really good moment between them. It was just a case of she understood, and for once he needed her for comfort, which I thought was absolutely beautiful, that she was there to be there in that moment for him while he was going through that, because especially with this new Doctor and the fact that, yeah, sure, he's a new Doctor, but all the Doctors before are in different ways implanted on the new one, as we've explained billions of times before. This is still a new experience for him that he's still trying to process. And the fact that it also happened like so fast, it's like, okay, I'm attracted to this person, and wait, I might actually be in love with him, but now he's gone, and he's never experienced that before in such a way that, as already mentioned, that Karen already said, like, oh, sure, the tennis Doctors kissed all these girls. This was someone he cared for that he didn't want to go away from. He wanted them to stay and build a relationship with. I mean, he was interested in more than just I guess I can't really call it a fling, but he was emotionally invested in this new person he just met, and they clicked, and it was great, and these are new emotions that he hasn't felt in a very long time, and it was just a whirlwind of stuff. And Ruby saw that in his despair after what happened at the end, and she's just like, come here. You need a moment. We're going to have a hug. I thought it was very appropriate.
There's a line early on in the episode when Ruby and the Doctor introduce themselves to Lady Pembury, I think it is, the Indira Varma character, and she talks about the party, like this is the finest part of the season or whatever it is. There's a line which says, real success is in the matches made. And the match that we've come to find out of this episode is the Doctor and Rogue. I mean, I think you've already mentioned the dance, Jen. The dance scene between them in the ballroom. That's the we're falling for each other. It's works very much like those old, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers musicals, where the dance means something so much more. It reminds me a little bit. The thing I thought of was the first Superman film when Superman takes Lois flying, as in Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder. That scene is two people falling in love with each other, and the flight is the metaphor. You may disagree, and definitely, Karen, please jump in if you disagree with this. So the people that had watched this on TV, I still felt, and I mean this as a positive, that just watching two men being intimate with each other in this way, still maybe in British TV at least, is a little bit, I know for revolutionary, that's maybe exaggerating, but just pushing the boundaries where they need to be pushed for prime time on a Saturday night. Not that two women wouldn't be, and this is my outsider perspective, so I could definitely be wrong. But because of the essentially what we call the male gaze, ZE, not YS, because of the male gaze, the idea of two women is somehow a little bit more palatable than two men, because it's almost the idea of two women gives the straight men something to look at, where two men does not. But we have seen like Captain Jack kind of kiss the Doctor, but that wasn't kind of in a romantic way. I'm not going to say it was non-consensual, but it wasn't solicited, where this one was. And I think that is a first. I mean, the idea of two men kissing on screen on British television, that is mercifully a line that has been crossed. But, I mean, Saturday night on a show like this, which is, it's not a kid's show, but it is aimed at children. And there's no doubt that some kids, because we forget how long this show's been on now for us modern fans. The show's been on a while. Like, people like Emma have gone on themselves to have children now who are watching this. And for them, it might be the first time they've seen a same-sex kiss on TV.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that this would be... Now, this plays before the watershed over there, correct?
Yeah. So Watershed 9 o'clock.
Definitely prime time.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a step. I mean, yeah, putting that into that context, it definitely was a step. There's never going to be a negative to seeing two men have an intimate moment of any kind where it's on television, accessible to many different age groups. I mean, perfect example, we struggle with it, look at us. But with Will and Grace, that was the most bland, sexless gay show you could imagine.
I was thinking that myself. I'm like,
yeah.
It was supposed to be like evolutionary with all these gay characters, and they didn't show anything really.
Yeah, they were eunuchs. I mean, you really can only show. Of course, there have been moves forward.
Would it also be fair to say we're not taking shots at the makers of that show? That's probably as much as they could have done at that time on that platform.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That was what they could do, and that was acceptable for the time. I mean, it wasn't acceptable that they were limited, but they did what they could do. But any step forward is going to be a positive step forward. And yeah, I've seen all the complaints, and I've seen all the worst episode ever. I stupidly thought after Jodie Whittaker stepped down as the Doctor, we would stop seeing these like 5-hour YouTube videos of this is destroying Doctor Who and these are step-by-step why. No, they're still making them.
A black queer Doctor as lead. No, that's not changing.
Yeah.
Who's also a refugee, don't forget.
Yeah, that's right. I was just talking with some other folks about something else that happened just this week where people are just complaining, and it's semi-related to this. I'll get to that. Someone pointed out on Reddit that there's this new phrase that's been going around. People who are culture war tourists, not terrorists, but tourists. And the term is essentially a kind of a blanket term for people who just basically complain about stuff for the sake of complaining and keep calling it woke and it sucks and I don't like this. And a lot of the times they don't even watch or are fans of said material, but they complain about it anyway. That's what some of these people are.
Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. If you don't like him as the Doctor, fucking move on. I'm more concerned with, is the writing good? Because the writing hasn't been that great on some of the episodes. I can't fault Gatwa. I can't fault Millie Gibson. I can't fault a lot of stuff. Somebody out there is enjoying it. Somebody out there is feeling seen. Somebody out there is feeling moved by it. That's not going to stop me from being like, what the fuck is this with these birds in period piece costumes? But that's just me being me. Overall, it was great. And I know that people are being seen right now and people are feeling seen right now. And I think that is 1,000% a positive.
Yeah, the culture war tourists, that's actually quite a good line because, and it's not just like in Doctor Who or even pop culture, but they show up, carpet bomb, bigoted abuse, and then take off to the next thing. Same. I mean, that's essentially what I like. The British newspapers and like Fox News, same thing. I like that really is their business model. I mean, it comes back to we spoke about this on last week on the Dot and Bubble episode. Some people do it because they actually like it. Like it's enjoyable for them. It's not the means, like it's the end. One other thing actually that did stand out, if I think of like the dynamic of the relationship with the Doctor role, is that it didn't feel like the first time ever. It reminded me a lot of The Girl in the Fireplace, the Moffat episode, Tennant's first series 2, when they visit, was it France? Very similarly, Doctor meeting someone, becoming, and a period, again like period piece, even though a different country. Meet someone, becoming smitten very quickly, and then through means out of their control, they become separated. And the Doctor is somewhat wounded afterwards, because very much the Doctor intends to go travelling with this person. The Doctor went to go travelling with Renette, and like he wants to go travelling with Rogue. This reminded me a lot of that. The only difference, obviously, it's two men rather than a man and a woman. And I would bet cash money that we see Rogue again. There is no way this is a one-time thing. The way the Doctor keeps the ring, like Rogue's ring, and they make a point of like saying they haven't killed any of them. They've just sent them to another dimension where they probably can't get back, but of course, being Doctor Who, like they always can. The only thing that I think stops us seeing Rogue again is if there's some kind of personal falling out between people involved, or Disney turned the money tap off and they can't afford Jonathan Groff. I think there's a 90% chance we see him again. I'd say there's a 40% chance we see him again this series. We've only got 2 more weeks, but I don't think we see him again. And another reason I think that is that when you look at Rogue's ship, it looks very much like the TARDIS. As soon as you get the wide shot as I open the door, that central console, I thought, that looks exactly like the TARDIS. And I would not be surprised if that means something. And as far as the whole, firstly, under the kiss being rushed, as we've said, the Doctor has wound up doing that plenty of times before in a modern era, mainly Tennant's era. But in addition to that, some people, queer people themselves, made a point online, and we're not, by the way, not trying to lob you in at all in this, Karen, but the idea of like this queer relationship developing very, very quickly is actually very much on brand. And I think a lot of the queer people I know, I'm like, yeah, no, that fits. That definitely tracks. There's the phrase U-Haul lesbian for a reason.
Right. I mean, I'm pan, so yeah, I totally get it.
The idea that went fast, that's like your hetero is showing.
Yeah, I was like, really? You thought that was fast? Oh, you're sweet.
I think we've already kind of touched on it, but the idea of Jonathan Groff presenting as this quite, badass bounty hunter, and you realise he likes D&D and listens to Kylie.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I was personally offended by that scene because I am often called soft butch, and I will fucking jam down to some Debbie Gibson. So there's nothing wrong with presenting one way and enjoying something that just is anathemic to what you think that person should listen to. Like, people are always like, you look like you listen to heavy metal and goth, and I'm like, I have Debbie Gibson's greatest hits playing.
I mean, I like George Michael. I feel you.
I mean, it is what it is. If you're stuck in a ship, you gotta have something that's going to keep you entertained and dancing around that console.
It's almost as if people contain multitudes. How about that?
Yeah.
And just final thing on this. Fuck you, Deadline. I'm talking about the online publication, Deadline. I think they're called Deadline Hollywood. for putting a piece out saying Doctor Who breaks ground with first same-sex kiss in 60 years.
What?
That is bullshit. It is bullshit. And people were like spamming that. It was kind of that tweet, spamming that tweet with like screenshots of all the other same-sex kisses of what there has been plenty. I mean, it's not even the same, because even though I said obviously the two men kiss in primetime feels like breaking new ground, I'm specifically referring to the Doctor, because we had a same-sex kiss between two men in the Praxis episode, which isn't, 3 years ago? 2-3 years ago? Now that would involve the Doctor, but that is still a same-sex kiss between two men. Very, very recent. And just on brand for Deadline. And Deadline, they're the people who, like, during the writers' strike and the writers and actors' strike, were basically on the side of the studios and were stenographers for the studios, which basically kind of sums up where they are. Not the kind of people holding power to account. Jen, just any other observations from the episode that we might have missed?
I like, as I mentioned, the meta of Kylie Minogue being in there. There was also the meta of, I mean, this is how deep I am into this. The fact that you'd mentioned Richard E. Grant, and the episode that the writers of this episode wrote for Loki had Richard E. Grant in it. The fact that it was set, they talked about Bridgerton, which in the storyline of Bridgerton is an alternate reality of King George, who Jonathan Groff played King George in Hamilton. I love the fact that India Rivara was in it. I love her so much. I've been following her pretty much almost her entire career. She's actually the same age as me. We're actually 3 weeks apart. She looks great for 50. And
she'll look great at 70.
Right? She put out a tweet, or actually an Instagram post of her in the makeup chair, getting that makeup put on. And she said it was a 4-hour process, and it was the actual makeup people actually were in the comments talking about the process and everything. It was really cool. The fact that a lot of her roles have been very subdued, and then here at the end of the episode when she's in that owl makeup, she just goes completely ham. I was just like, wow, that is new for her. That is so wild, and I love it. I think she's great. Groff he's around all over the place too, but most people either know him from The Matrix or from Hamilton or a lot of his guest star appearances and other stuff.
Or Mindhunter, maybe.
Yeah. He's a human up-and-comer, and I think he's going to go far.
Well, just this past week, there's a feature of him in The New Yorker. He's done that play with Daniel Radcliffe, and I've forgotten who else.
That's right. That's right, he did.
And I think he and Radcliffe, in fact, maybe all of them got Tony nominations. I know he definitely got one, and it was a feature piece in New Yorker. No mention of Doctor Who in there. But the fact that he front and centre in the New Yorker, and then it's like, oh, he's on Doctor Who. Timing, very nice. Maybe scrape a few extra viewers like you might do.
Yeah, but I think he's going to go. I mean, he's still a rising star, and he's just going to keep going. I mean, he's amazing because of his theater background. I think he's going to keep going, and I'm pretty sure, especially with the reactions to this episode, Rogue will definitely be back. It was nice to see Ruby not be a damsel in distress. She actually held her own in her own situations. She was kind of fangirly, obviously, about the setting they were in, but she held her own in that scene in the fight with the other alien. And she didn't need the Doctor to save her, which is really nice. And the fact that she comforted him at the end. But just everything in general, it's ticking everything. I love Jane Austen stuff. I love geeky stuff like that. I love cosplay. I'm actually a cosplayer. I love D&D. I love the romantic subplot, and it wasn't like ham. I love that Ruby was holding her own. I love that everything about this episode except for his hair. I just was gaga, and I was just squeeing the whole time, and I haven't squeed at a Doctor Who episode in a while.
Karen, do you have any additional observations?
I really liked the subtlety of the music cues. Well, they weren't all subtle. Of course, Kylie Minogue is the obvious one. But I noted in my first viewing the classical cover of Poker Face.
Oh, I laughed at that. So I laughed out loud at that. I'm like, of course.
And yeah, and I was like, I think I might have heard something else too. And so I went back and I listened to the classical covers, and I knew that the one that the Doctor and Rogue danced to was something I had heard before. And so I looked it up, and it was a classical music cover of Grace Jones's I've Seen That Face Before.
That's what that was. I thought it was familiar.
And then there was another one. I didn't catch this because I'm not familiar with Billie Eilish, but apparently they
yes, bad guy.
Yeah, bad guy.
When they first meet, bad guy when they first meet. And I think the use of the artists. I mean, they weren't forking out for a Beatles song because all the music budget went on this free. But you have kind of, if you think of the artists, that definitely fits the tone of the episode. Billie Eilish, Grace Jones, Lady Gaga, 3 artists that very much kind of, shall we say, queer fans love them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely loved that, if you know, you know. And it sort of was another subtle layer that added to the enjoyment of the episode. And also, I have to say, I don't have pierced ears. I've never wanted pierced ears, but if I could get battle mode earrings, I would fucking pierce my ears in a heartbeat.
I feel every woman would.
I was like, as soon as the doctor said that to her, I was like, oh, we're definitely getting a battle mode scene.
Yeah, Chekhov's earrings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I would absolutely 1,000% get my ears pierced if I could get battle mode earrings. Or even earrings that help me dance, because, issues there.
This does feel a little bit, this episode, you could describe it when cosplaying goes wrong. But the Chulders characters, they're silly villains. They're not Extinction level event villains by any stretch. But they do seem to basically aspire to power and acting cruel without responsibility. And like some people, I think, in media, both traditional and social, who kind of just want drama no matter what, because they find it fun and entertaining, no matter what harm it causes. That's something I think is a very contemporary thing. People will choose drama over virtue, and no matter who's being harmed by it, as long as I'm not being... it's summed up by the line of, was it Les Moonves, who was in charge of CBS News? Donald Trump may not be good for America, but he's good for CBS. That mindset. And that feels a little bit like, if there's a running theme that we'll get through RTD's era, I think it might be this. I'm seeing this a little bit. I saw this a bit in 73 Yards. The Roger Ap Gwilliam, 98% are going to see again. I think it's a running theme that we're going to come up again and again. I think it's something that Russell in particular is kind of a hobby horse of his. And I think also back to Years and Years, that was also a big part, I think, of Years and Years as well. Another thing to mention about Indira Varma is this almost went into what I liked the least. Not her being in it, but if you're going to cast her, I'd have liked to see more of her. She's just someone I love seeing on screen. I think she's a very good actor. She's got more range, I think, some people realise. She plays like an American in the Benedict Cumberbatch show, Patrick Melrose. She was definitely having so much fun when she got to break bad. Kick the door down and saying, "Attention, s'il vous plaît," which almost feels like that was an ad-lib. It was very much, I'm just going to dick about and have fun. And that's great. She can do that. But there is part of me that's like, oh, you could have cast her as something huge. If the Rani is coming back, that could have been her. Or she could have been a version of the Master or another massive villain if you want. But it was good to see her. It's just pretty much see her again. And on a little guest spot like that, it's I'll cast an unknown actor. Don't cast someone established like Indira Varma. Scene earlier on, when Lady Emily Bennett, initially we think is the friend, the scene when Ruby accidentally interrupts them in the library, or drawing room, whatever they call it, and Lord Barnes you're not a suitable match, I can't wed you. Even though this is this Bridgerton world where we're kind of we're not just acknowledging race at all, we're going colourblind, I just wonder if there was an extra dimension to that she's an East Asian woman. The Act 2 plays her as Camilla Iko, the kind of, I can do whatever with you, but I'm not marrying you. And I haven't seen Bridgerton, so I don't know exactly how it functions there. But in that scene, Barton is a Chulder now, because this is when he's changing the pre-credit sequence. And we find out that Lady Bennett was also a Chulder herself. If Ruby hadn't interrupted them, it's Chulder on Chulder incest?
Oh.
Ruby didn't realise what a service she did for everyone by accidentally interrupting that and knocking them books over. I did find it quite funny, and this is nothing a reference I don't think you two would get at all, but when she introduces herself as Lady Ruby from the Notting Hill estate, which would be a little bit like in America saying, I'm Ruby Sunday of the South Central Sundays or of the Harlem Sundays. And the only other thing is, as in this episode, Ruby is nearly dying a lot. And
true.
I don't think this is accidental. And we don't have to wait long to find out if I'm right about that. There are moments where it's like, well, you were just fingernails away from dying. This has happened quite a bit in what is, I think, going to be the norm in terms of series length, but compared to what we've been used to, a shortened series. And in the longer 12-episode ones, most companions weren't coming this close to dying repeatedly. Now, this does feel deliberate. So, Karen, if we move to your MVP for the episode.
I really liked Groff. Gatwa is just so watchable and so expressive and so enjoyable when he's on scene, even when it's lower quality writing. He's still the shining star of the moment. So I'm going to say Gatwa.
Get deeper into this when we do our end of series review, but I've said before, he hasn't figured out this character yet. No one does in their first series.
And especially since I think that the character itself is evolving because it's new Who. So I'm, again, not expecting him to have his footing completely because I don't think anybody has their footing. It's a brave new world.
So, Jen, who's your MVP?
I'm going to go out on a way other way and say the MVP of this episode was the costume and makeup department. The owl people were kind of weird, but damn, did they look good for what they had available. I mean, in Dira's Instagram, she had slides, and it was showing like the steps of how they got her all made up. It was interesting. I loved, hearing about makeup and costume, and I think especially the costuming was beautiful. I mean, it wasn't like Bridgerton tier because they have more money, but for what they could pull off in that time period with what they had available, and this was essentially a bottle episode because they were just in that house and around the house the whole time. I think they did an amazing job. I mean, yeah, sure, the owl look was a little but for what they had to pull off, I thought the feathers in particular were very impressive. And the fact that they added a little bit of special effects, because owls actually have two eyelids. And there were a couple times you actually saw them blink with the other eyelids. I thought that was a nice little touch. So props to the makeup and costuming.
So my MVP, I slightly struggled with this, but I'm going to go with the writers, Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. Even though this, and it's probably because the NBA Finals are on right now, but this felt like a game where like the points were shared. No one went big. No one went big for 40 points. Everyone, like 4 players got 20, and the points were shared around. And this felt like an episode where I don't think this is the best episode of the series. I do think this has been the most fun so far. And what I mean specifically by that is it's knowingly fun. Herron and Redman, with what they put in, with the tone of it, it's knowingly queer, it's knowingly silly, it's knowingly camp, it's knowingly romantic. It's knowingly not trivial, but light at times. These are things that are all done by intention. They're done with a precision, which is what means that me as a audience member, and it's something that, and this is I think where some Doctor Who fans seem to struggle with, that the show, not only can it be anything, it will be anything week to week. So the tone of one episode, you may get on with that episode. If we just use Boom as an example, the emotional register you have to get on to engage with Boom is a totally different emotional register than you need for this. It's the same show. It's recognisably the same show. But the emotion that you're engaging with are different ones week to week. And you, as a viewer, have to be flexible and malleable in your own mind to get on board with the show as much as the writers do and the actors do and the people creating it. It is incumbent on us. And it's easier when what they're doing is done with real accuracy and precision. I criticise Dot and Bubble for lacking a bit of precision. This, I think, had a lot of precision. And this is the difference between an episode being a lot more fun. And a key aspect of that is the acting. The performances, to use common parlance, these actors understood the assignment. They all understood the tone of what this episode had to be. And so they all modulated their performances, because I mentioned Shooty was quite different in this as he's been in a few other episodes. And Millie, you think Millie Gibson 73 yards and you think of her in this, it's the same actor and the same character. Like, they've read that script and like, oh, okay, I know what we're going for here. I see what we're going for. It has to be not winking at the camera, but we almost have to be doing this with a slight twinkle in our eye. And also you have to be very... Like, not much is being internalized here. Everything's got to be on the surface. You have to be very open in all the emotions that you're signaling. It's written that way and has to be acted that way. And it was very strongly throughout the episode, which is why it remained fun when I was engaged throughout. And I really hope these two, like Kate Herron might have been a bit more demand, but I hope these two come back, because I do think this tone is a good one to have in Doctor Who. I don't want every episode like this, but I think it's good to have episodes, 1 or 2, or maybe 1 now if it's only 8 episodes a series. 1 like this. I think it's healthy for the show. I think it's one that's easier for non-hardcore fans to get on board with as well, because there is a bit of, oh, this new Doctor Who, oh yeah, with the guy from Sex Education, oh right, I've never really watched Doctor Who, it seems a bit, sci-fi, a bit dense for me. It's like, would you like Bridgerton? Yeah, I like Bridgerton. Well, then you might like this. So I do think you need episodes that have this vibe to them, and not every week can be dramatic or gripping or profound, and when it isn't, then you just need it to be fun. You need it to be fun. You need Rogue, you need dinosaurs in a spaceship, and I think that's what we got here. Only other thing we need to very briefly mention, while I was editing last week's episode, the news, not surprising, but still very sad news, came about the passing of William Russell. William Russell played Ian Chesterton, who was part of the first ever Team TARDIS, one of the originals. It feels even better now, for a great time better, that we did get to see him in Jodie's final episode, in the kind of companion support group at the end. And that was the best bit of that support group, when we saw him. And he only had 1 word. And by all accounts, by people, lots of tributes online, by all accounts, by fans who met him, a really, really lovely man. And it's always important to remember that when you have a show that's 60 years... I mean, this is like when Nichelle Nichols passed away, or when Leonard Nimoy passed away for Star Trek, that even if you didn't watch or aren't aware of it, the thing you watch and love now doesn't exist without people like them. They're the foundation stones. And he's one foundation stone. I mean, Karen, I'm sure you haven't seen him. Jen, did you ever see any of, William Russell?
No, but I saw him in another show that he was big in, which was called Adventures of Sir Lancelot. I saw some old episodes of that. I recognized him when he was in that little cameo, and I was like, that's the teacher!
Well, yeah, and even, I mean, in terms of his importance and his relevance to the memories, that in the 50th anniversary, Clara's work is a teacher working at school, and that's the very start of the episode, and you see on the school, Coal Hill School, and is it headmaster or benefactor? It has Ian's name on the front.
Oh, did it? I didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little Easter egg. It was a little Easter egg. So was always kind of memorialized, and his legacy wasn't forgotten in it. It will live on for as long as the show lives on. So it was very important to acknowledge that William Russell's no longer with us. Okay, so if you have any thoughts on what we've just spoken about, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com, or you can reach us on Twitter or Instagram at analysingdw, and Analysing Doctor Who is also available on YouTube. So, Jen, Karen, thank you for both being here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to analyse The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Until next time. Our logo was courtesy of Scott Mattison. His work can be found at planetrisecreative.com and on Twitter at planetrise. Our theme tune is by Mike Mould. We can be reached at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com, and on Twitter at AnalysingDW.